I was reorganizing Gran's filing cabinet when my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. It was a text from my father. Not a call, a text. 4 words and a period. "We're moving to Costa Rica." I read it twice, then I put the phone face down on the counter, finished labeling the folder I was holding, Property Tax 2024, and slid it into the drawer before I let myself think about what that meant. My grandmother's house smells like cedar, and old paper, and the faint ghost of the lavender sachets she's been buying from the same shop in Stratford, Ontario since before I was born. I've been coming here every other Saturday for 3 years now, ever since Gran had her first fall. Nothing serious, but enough. Enough for me to notice that the gutters hadn't been cleaned, that the driveway needed resurfacing, that there were 12 unread voicemails on her landline, most of them from the bank. My parents had been managing Gran's affairs for most of my adult life. That was the arrangement. Gran had a modest estate. The house in Stratford worth about $380,000, a non-registered investment account she'd built slowly over 40 years of working as a school librarian, and a small RIF that threw off just enough to cover her property taxes and grocery runs. Nothing extravagant. Everything earned. I'm an accountant, not a flashy one. I work for a mid-sized firm in Kitchener, mostly small business clients, year-end filings, the kind of work people forget exists until April. But numbers are how I understand the world. And 3 years ago, when Gran showed me her bank statement because she couldn't figure out why her account balance was lower than she expected, I understood exactly what I was looking at. I just couldn't prove it yet. My sister, she's 2 years younger than me, teaches kindergarten in Guelph, had noticed things too. Little things. Gran mentioning that my father had borrowed money to fix the roof on their own house. Gran saying, with that careful smile she uses when she's trying not to make trouble, that she'd signed some papers but she wasn't entirely sure what for. My sister would call me after those visits and we'd talk around it, neither of us wanting to say the thing out loud. Our parents were stealing from our grandmother. Not dramatically, not all at once. Slowly, the way a slow leak ruins a foundation, water finding the path of least resistance, damage accumulating in places nobody thinks to look. I started paying closer attention after that first bank statement. I offered to help Gran with her filing. I started attending her annual review at the investment advisor's office, which my parents had always done alone before. I asked Gran gently, over tea, whether she'd be comfortable if I was added as a contact on her accounts. Just in case, I said. Just so someone local could help quickly if something came up. She said yes immediately. She seemed relieved. That was 18 months ago. The night my father sent that text, I called my sister from Gran's driveway. "Costa Rica," I said. There was a long silence. "When?" "I don't know." The text just said they're moving. Another silence. "The investment account," she said. "I know." "How much is left?" "As of last month, a little over $94,000. There had been $210,000 in that account 4 years ago. I had the statements. I'd been collecting them quietly, saving copies in a folder on my laptop and a backup on an encrypted drive I kept at my office. I'd spoken to a lawyer 6 months earlier, a woman who specializes in elder financial abuse, whose name I'd found through the Advocacy Center for the Elderly in Toronto. She'd told me what to document, what to preserve, and what not to do yet. The "not yet" was the hardest part. Because the thing about watching someone drain an account slowly is that there's always a reason. A car repair here, a medical expense there. My father had power of attorney over Gran's finances. She'd granted it years ago, when she trusted him completely, when she had no reason not to. He'd used it incrementally, carefully, always with a plausible explanation ready. My mother managed the narrative. She was the one who called Gran every Sunday, who brought flowers at Easter, who made sure Gran felt loved and attended to while my father moved money like water through cracks in stone. When I told a lawyer what I suspected, she nodded. She said she saw this pattern often. Adult children with access, aging parent who doesn't want conflict, grandchildren who can see it happening but have no legal standing to stop it. She told me that what I gathered was good. She told me we needed one more thing, proof of intent. Something that showed this wasn't mismanagement. Something that showed they knew exactly what they were doing. Costa Rica was that thing. I didn't sleep much that week. I kept running through the timeline in my head. If they were leaving Canada, they'd want liquidity. They'd want to move funds before they went, possibly transfer them out of Gran's account and into their own, then wire internationally. The $94,000 remaining in the investment account was held in a mix of GICs and a money market fund. The GIC wouldn't mature for another 11 months, but the money market portion, just over $38,000, was accessible. I called the lawyer the morning after the text. She said, "It's time." Within 48 hours, we had an emergency application filed with the Ontario Superior Court of Justice to have the power of attorney reviewed. Gran was present and fully capable. She sat at the lawyer's office in a goodwill court and answered every question clearly and without hesitation. She said she had not authorized a move to Costa Rica. She said she did not know her investment account had decreased by over $100,000 in 4 years. She said quietly that she had wondered, but she hadn't wanted to cause trouble. She signed new documents that day. The power of attorney was revoked. I was named her attorney for property. My sister was named her attorney for personal care. The investment advisor was notified. A hold was placed on the account. 2 days after that, I was at work eating a sad desk sandwich at noon. My phone rang. It was my father. "The financial institution is saying there's a hold on your grandmother's account," he said. His voice was careful, controlled. "I know," I said. A pause. "What do you mean you know?" "I mean I'm aware of the hold. I authorized it." The silence that followed was the longest of my life. I could hear him breathing. I could hear underneath that the specific quality of someone recalculating. Someone who had believed they were the smartest person in the room for years, discovering they'd been wrong. "You can't do that," he said finally. "I have power of attorney." "You had power of attorney," I said. "Gran revoked it 3 days ago. Her lawyer filed the paperwork with the Office of the Public Guardian and Trustee. I'd suggest you speak with a lawyer." He hung up. My sister called me that evening. I told her what had happened. She cried a little. Not sad. Crying, the other kind. The kind that comes when a thing you've been carrying for years finally gets put down. We didn't hear from my parents for 11 days. When they finally called Gran directly, she was ready. We talked about what she wanted to say and what she didn't. She kept it simple. She told them she knew what had happened. She told them she was not interested in explanations. She told them she had spoken to a lawyer and that if they tried to access any of her accounts again, she would report it to the police. Then she said goodbye and hung up. And then she picked up her crossword puzzle and went back to work on 6 across. And I sat across from her at the kitchen table and thought that she was possibly the most composed person I'd ever known. They did not move to Costa Rica. I don't know exactly what happened on their end. I know they hired a lawyer. I know the lawyer advised them, presumably, that what they'd been doing had a name in Canadian law, misappropriation of funds by an attorney for property, and that the consequences were serious. I know there were conversations I wasn't part of, and I've made peace with not knowing their contents. What I do know is what happened with the money. Of the $106,000 that had left Gran's account over 4 years, we were able to trace $74,000 to specific transactions, transfers to my parents' joint account, payments made on their home equity line of credit, renovations to their own house. The remaining amount was harder to document cleanly. After several months of negotiation through lawyers, my parents signed an agreement to repay $74,000 in structured payments over 5 years. They also transferred the title on a recreational property, a small lot they'd bought years ago, to Gran, which settled the remainder. It's not everything. My lawyer was clear about that. We could have pursued more, but litigation is expensive and slow and hard on elderly people who have to relive difficult things in depositions. Gran said she wanted it settled. She said she wanted her life back, not a courtroom. We respected that. Gran's investment account has been restructured. I review the statements every quarter. Her GIC matured in the spring and we reinvested it in a laddered portfolio, 2-year, 3-year, 3-year, which her advisor says should generate enough to supplement her Canada pension plan and old age security comfortably for the foreseeable future. Her property taxes are paid. The gutters have been cleaned. There's a new handrail on the back steps that I installed myself on a Saturday in October, and Gran made hot chocolate afterward, and we sat on the porch even though it was almost too cold, and she said, out of nowhere, that she was glad I'd started coming around. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just nodded and held my mug and looked at the yard. My sister and I have talked a lot about what to call what happened. We grew up in a house where money was always slightly uncomfortable. Never enough of it, always some low-grade anxiety humming beneath ordinary life. We watched our parents make choices we didn't understand, choices that seemed to prioritize appearance over stability, the idea of comfort over the work of building it. We saw them look at Glan's small, careful savings and see something that belonged to them by proximity. We were never going to be the kids who just let that go. Not because we didn't love our parents. I still don't know exactly how to describe what I feel about them now. And I suspect I'll be working on that for a long time. But because Gran spent 40 years shelving books and helping other people's children find stories they didn't know they needed, and she deserved to have someone notice what was happening and do something about it. We noticed. We did something. There's a version of this story where my parents successfully leave for Costa Rica and we spend the next several years trying to claw money back across an international border. I came very close to letting that happen. There were months when I told myself I was being paranoid, when I talked myself out of calling the lawyer, when I thought maybe there was an innocent explanation I was too suspicious to see. The thing that kept me going back to those statements, kept me asking questions, kept me taking notes in a spreadsheet I labeled house stuff so it wouldn't seem alarming in my downloads folder, was Gran herself. The way she'd pause sometimes when money came up, the way she'd look slightly to the side, the careful smile, the not wanting to cause trouble. She deserved someone who would cause trouble on her behalf. My sister and I take turns now, Saturday visits. We bring food sometimes, or we just come and sit. Last month, Gran taught my sister how to make her butter tart recipe, the one that uses a fluted pan and takes most of an afternoon. And my sister texted me a photo of them standing at the counter with flour on their aprons, and I saved it immediately, and I've looked at it probably more times than I'd like to admit. I don't have a tidy lesson to wrap this up with. I'm not sure I believe in tidy lessons anymore. What I believe is that paying attention matters. That documentation matters. That being the kind of person who saves the statement and makes the call and sits in the lawyer's office and says, I think something is wrong here. That matters, even when it's uncomfortable. Even when the people you're holding accountable are the ones who taught you how to ride a bike and made your birthday cakes, and used to be people you trusted without thinking about it. Gran called me last week just to chat. She'd finished the book she was reading and wanted to know if I had any recommendations. We talked for 40 minutes. At one point, she laughed, really laughed at something I said. I can't even remember what. And I thought, that's it. That's the thing. That laugh, easy and unguarded, from a woman who no longer has to wonder where her money went or whether she can trust the people closest to her. That's what we were protecting. That's what it was worth. I keep coming back to the moment Gran signed those new documents at the lawyer's office. She was wearing her good wool coat, the charcoal one she saves for important occasions, and she answered every question without hesitating. No confusion, no wavering, just a woman who finally had someone sitting beside her telling the truth out loud about what had been done to her. I think about what would have happened if I talked myself out of it one more time. There were so many moments where I almost did, where I told myself I was being uncharitable, that surely there was an explanation. That accusing your own parents of financial abuse is not a small thing and I could be wrong. That voice is persuasive. It sounds reasonable. It sounds like the kind of thing a good person would think. But I kept coming back to the statements, to the numbers, to the pattern that numbers make when someone has been helping themselves, slowly and carefully, to money that wasn't theirs. What I've learned, really learned in my bones, is that doing right by someone isn't always comfortable. It doesn't always feel noble in the moment. Sometimes it feels like opening a spreadsheet at 11 at night and cross-referencing 4 years of transactions, and it feels tedious and lonely and like maybe you're the problem for noticing. But that's the work. That's what it actually looks like to protect someone who trusted the wrong people and doesn't want to cause trouble about it. My sister and I used to joke that we got the practical genes in the family. She's patient with 5-year-olds who don't know how to sit still yet. I'm patient with numbers that don't add up. What I understand now is that patience isn't passive. Patience, the real kind, is staying in the problem long enough to see it clearly, not giving up on the uncomfortable truth just because sitting with it is hard. Gran spent 40 years being careful with money. She earned $1 at a time. She deserved someone who would be equally careful with it on her behalf. Not because there was anything in it for us. There wasn't, really. Not in any material sense. But because the right thing and the easy thing are almost never the same thing, and the distance between them is where character actually gets built. I'm not telling this story because I think we're exceptional. I'm telling it because I know there are people watching this who recognize something in it. Maybe you've noticed something that doesn't add up. Maybe you've been telling yourself it's not your place, or that you're probably wrong, or that the fallout isn't worth it. I'm not going to tell you it's easy. The fallout was real. The grief of it. Losing the parents you thought you had, or maybe finally admitting you never quite had them. That's not small. But Gran called me last week just to chat. She laughed, really laughed, and it was easy and unguarded, and I thought that's what it was for. Not the account balance, not the legal victory. That laugh. That's what staying in the discomfort was worth. Pay attention to what you notice. Do the hard thing anyway. Stay in it long enough to see it through,